can I take it from that now people can see me as well, Mr. Blake?
We can, yes.
Well, good morning to everyone, and I congratulate everyone involved with the technology in ensuring that we are starting more or less promptly this morning. So that's very good. I think we have 4 witnesses today. Is that correct, Mr. Blake?
That's correct, yes.
Well, then over to you to get going. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
and
nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Your Grace.
Before Mr. Blake starts, Mrs. Williams, very nice to see you from afar, but I'm listening intently to every word. I'm sure you'll understand that.
Yes, thank you.
Good morning.
Yes, Mr. Blake.
Good morning. As the Chair has explained, I'm Julian Blake and I'm going to be asking questions today on behalf of the Chair. Could you give your full name, please?
Marjorie Lorraine Williams.
Ms. Williams, in front of you there should be a witness statement. Could I ask you to look at that witness statement? It should be dated January the 11th of this year, is that correct?
Correct.
And if you turn to the back page, there should be your signature, is that right?
Yes.
And can you confirm that that statement is true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
I'm going to start today by asking you a little bit about your background. Can you tell us how old you are now?
I'm 55 now.
And can you tell us where you're from?
Originally from the Llyn Peninsula, but now I live on Anglesey.
And your husband is here, and,
Yes.
and I believe you have a daughter as well,
Yes.
and she's 21 years old now.
Yes. Yes.
Before becoming a sub-postmistress, what did you do?
I was a warden for the elderly, working for the local council, looking after 21 bungalows. I was also fostering with my husband.
You said you were a warden.
Yes.
Did that involve living in the accommodation as well?
We had a house, yes, with work, and it was like a little estate with 21 bungalows.
And you became a sub-postmistress in April 2009.
Yes.
Where was that?
In the village, in the same village where we lived.
And how did you go about purchasing that? How much money did you pay?
We gave £5,000 towards the sub-postmistress that was there, just for the goods that were there.
Can you describe for us the location, what kind of a place it is?
It's only a small village. Bus goes through every couple of hours, and that's the only shop, post office they have.
In your first few years of operating that post office, did you enjoy the job?
Yes, I loved being part of the community because I used to work in the after-school club and the youth club, so I was very much involved with the village.
Did you receive training as part of...
At the beginning, before I started, and then when Horizon came, I had like nearly 5 days, but it's a very quiet post office, so it was just training if and when customers had come in.
And we'll move on to the problems that you experienced with Horizon. Horizon Online was installed in July 2010. What did you use before that?
It was just the ordinary computer.
In simple terms, can you tell us the difference between Horizon Online for you and what you used before?
Less paperwork, but, you know, dockets and stuff like that, less of that. It was all on the computer, so you had nothing to go back on.
We've heard yesterday about shortfalls. Did you experience shortfalls?
Yes, I did, yes.
Initially, how often did you experience shortfalls?
Every, say, once a month, a couple of months.
And what did you do about that? Did you call the helpline?
I did call a helpline a couple of times. I was experiencing problems with the electricity as well. And they said, well, it's your building, you're renting the building, you've got to sort that out. And I was trying to tell them, well, every time there was a fault with electricity, there was the system was slow coming back on, and it might be take half a day before the system was back online.
And did you find the helpline helpful?
No, not at all.
Why
in my
not?
experience, because what they were saying was it was the fault with electricity. I was renting the property, so in other words, you sort it out yourself.
I'm going to take you chronologically through one particular shortfall. Starting in February of 2011, do you recall that shortfall and how much it was?
Briefly, it was between £2,000 and £3,000.
And on that occasion, did you call the helpline?
No, from past experience, and I thought it must be there, that amount, it's got to be there, so I'll just try and look for it myself.
By March of 2011, what had happened to that shortfall?
It had doubled, more or less it doubled. And again, the worst thing I did was not ask for help. Didn't mention anything to my husband, to my family, because I felt stupid, because I thought it must be me, it must be something I'm doing wrong.
Did you have any idea what was going wrong?
No, not at all.
The audit and subsequent investigation. The auditors arrived in June of 2011. Can you describe the conversation that you had with the auditors?
I remember that morning very well. They just turned up saying they wanted to do an audit. And I mentioned to them, I think there is a problem. It was like a little locked up unit for the post office, so they told me to go out, and both of them went in there. And then they came up with this figure, and they asked me where it was, and I said, I don't know. I haven't, I don't know where it is. And they just took the keys off me and suspended me there and then.
Do you remember in broad terms what that figure was?
Just over 14,000.
£14,000.
Yeah, just over, yeah.
Just over. And you said you were suspended.
Yeah.
Again, moving chronologically, on the 27th of June 2011, you met with investigators, is that right?
Yeah.
Do you remember where that was?
Was that the one in Trail? Yeah, that was the one in Trail, yes.
And where's that, sorry?
Trail.
Trill.
Trail.
Yes. And can you tell us a little bit about that meeting?
I had to went in there, and they were just asking me questions, where did money gone, and if I knew anything about it. But on the other hand, saying, don't worry about it. Well, it'll be sorted. They kept telling me, don't worry.
And how did you feel at that stage?
I was worried because I thought it's got to be somewhere. But the breakdown they gave me, that was weird because it wasn't just in cash, it was stock as well. And I thought, there's something wrong here.
Is that because your post office was particularly small?
Yeah, yeah.
You had a further meeting with investigators on the 30th of June. Do you remember where that was?
That was in Bangor Royal Mail Sorting Office.
Now, we know that by that stage, 2009, there had been reporting in, for example, the Computer Weekly about problems with Horizon. Did you discuss any problems with Horizon at that meeting with investigators?
I told them it can't be me because I haven't taken it. It must be. I did say it must be a problem. Didn't actually say Horizon, but the computer system.
And were you led to believe that there were more people affected or not?
I was the only one. It's never happened before, so I was the only one. That's what they kept telling me.
And things moved on from that location. I think they went to your home after that.
First of all, my car was parked outside. They searched my car, and then they followed me home to search the home we were at the time. They both came in, and I remember, I know it's a bit daft, but I remember them sitting down, and one having a cup of tea and the other one having a squash. They came to look through my house, supposedly. They never moved from the living room. They did ask for bank account details, and again they kept telling me not to worry, it will be sorted.
And again, did you worry?
Of course I worried because there was figures, and they were trying to say that I'd taken money, but on the other hand they were saying don't worry about it.
In terms of your contract with the post office, what was the result of that investigation?
I think they terminated my contract, was it in July?
Yep.
Yeah.
And what happened to your shop?
Well, I kept the shop going, and I phoned the post office and I begged them to get somebody in to run the post office, because I knew how important it was for the village. Because like I said, there was only buses going every couple of hours. You had a lot of pensioners who depended on the post office. And they said they would get somebody in, and because I was paying rent for the building, and it was like a little unit, whoever took the post office over would pay a bit of rent to help me with, but they never paid me a penny. But I just left it, and it took them 2 weeks to get somebody into the post office for me.
And were you still paying for the rent?
Yeah, yeah.
Moving on to the prosecution, October of 2011, do you remember what you were charged with?
Theft. That was in Holyhead after my first court appearance.
So your first appearance was in Holyhead. What other courts did you go to?
We went to Carnarvon and I went to Mould.
And
But
were
the
those,
final one was in Carnarvon.
and was that the Crown Court?
Yeah.
You've mentioned in your statement a plea bargain, and we've heard a little bit about this yesterday. Can you tell us?
Well, on my
happened there?
first visit to Carnarvon, I had Judge Roderick, and he read my statement, and he looked at me and he said, money's gone, because I was pleaded not guilty, and he goes, money's gone, go out and have a rethink about your plea. So I had to go out, and my barrister talked to the post office people, and she came back and she said, if you plead guilty to false accounting and fraud, they will drop the theft charge, and hopefully you won't go to jail.
And what did you think about that?
I didn't want to go to jail, because I knew my friend Noel had been, and I didn't want to leave my daughter. And I thought, at least, you know, I'll be coming home, hopefully.
So you took that bargain,
Yeah,
in effect?
yeah, because I knew I hadn't taken the money.
On the 3rd of May of 2012, you were sentenced.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what punishment you received?
Do you know, I don't remember a lot of it. I remember being in this cubicle with this lady. My husband's told me a bit about what they've said. He did say that I was of good character, and I had quite a few references, and he knew that I'd never be in court again. And he did mention apparently that he did ask the post office people if this was the Horizon system again. When he did sentence me, I just turned around to this lady and said, what does that mean? It just means you're going home.
So you recall the judge actually mentioning the possibility that it was Horizon again?
I personally don't. My husband does.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was,
Did you think that you might go to prison?
yeah,
Had you prepared for prison that day?
yeah. Packed a bag, which my husband had, and in my coat pocket I had a locket with my daughter's picture.
And how old was your daughter at that time?
10.
And what sentence did you receive?
It was a 52-week jail sentence, 18 months suspended, with probation and 200 hours. But when I went from, after I was sentenced, I was going to another room with the barrister, and she said to me, when you go to probation, remember, don't tell them that you're not guilty, because if you tell them that, they'll take you back and they'll put you in jail.
So you had regular meetings with the probation services.
Yeah, it was supposed to be weekly, then every fortnightly and every month for the time. I was going weekly because I was always breaking down, because I was having to lie to them. And they thought I wasn't coping, which I wasn't coping, but they didn't know why really about it. And I was humiliated because they were trying to teach me how to budget and money and stuff like that, and it just felt awful.
And another part of your sentence was that you had to do some unpaid work.
Yeah.
Where did you work?
Well, when I went to probation, one of the ladies there, the first lady I saw, she looked at my case and she said, you won't be able to go into any charity shops to work or anything like that after what you've done. But luckily, there's a lady that lives in our village, and she was the HR manager of a charity. It's a farm on the island that work with disabled people, young disabled people. And she phoned the probation place and she asked if I could go and do my hours there with them. And that's what I did.
So what kind of work did you do?
It was just a lot of recycling, looking after the disabled people, and it's just working on the farm.
Now, your conviction and sentence were overturned in April
Yeah.
of last year. We're now going to talk about the impact on you, first financial and then personal. In terms of financial, can you remember approximately how much you had to pay back to the post office?
I think it was like 14,660 something.
So about £14,000.
Yeah.
And how did you manage to pay it?
Well, we had a little house that we bought in the village, but at the time we bought it, I was the only one that was employed, so it was in my name. So my husband had to buy me out in a way. I wasn't allowed to be on the mortgage because I was deemed as a risk. And with him being older as well, he had to take the mortgage for shorter years. So our mortgage payments quadrupled.
So if we think about one of the things we don't often think about it in terms of impact, you actually had to pay more for your mortgage because you were seen as more risky.
Yeah. I wasn't supposed to be in the house because it deemed it a risk. And then my husband had to work all the hours, taking overtime because he was worried we'd lose the house if he couldn't make the payments.
And you've mentioned before that you had a job as a warden. What happened to that?
I was suspended while the trial was going. I was allowed to stay there. And then I was reinstated. But within a month, one or two of the residents weren't happy that I was still there because I didn't have a clean DBS, you know, the CRB, and it wasn't a cleared one. So I lost my job in October.
So you lost your job because you had a criminal conviction?
Yeah. And we lost our home as well.
I was going to say, what was the impact of losing that job? Because you have told us that you lived on site.
Yeah, it was horrendous because it was like a little village for us, and my daughter had been grown up from the age of 1 till nearly 11. Yes, we had a little house in the village that we were renting out, but it was only, you know, a small little house. Luckily, we had that because the council people didn't want to know. They just wanted us out.
Did your conviction impact on obtaining a future job?
Yeah, because I didn't have a clean DBS. I honestly thought nobody would ever employ me again. But my sister-in-law was at a local pub one weekend on a Sunday, and they were advertising for drivers for Meals on Wheels. And she said I was looking for work. And these people were good friends with Noel Thomas, so they knew what had happened and they knew the truth, really. And they employed me to start off with 15 hours a week, which ended up doing over 40 hours a week, 7 days a week, just to get money in to try and help with my husband financially.
Did you have any other jobs?
The charity that I worked for advertised a job to look after for a support worker, and I applied thinking, oh, they won't employ me. But fair play, they did employ me, even though they did have trouble with the council because of my CRB. They were very good to me, and I worked there for 5 years.
Moving on to the personal impact. What impact has this all had on your physical health?
I've got type 2 diabetes now. And I've got, it doesn't look like, but I've got scarring alopecia, and which means when the hair's gone, it won't be replaced. That's why I'm aged and only trying to get my hair just right. I was a recluse, I wouldn't go out. I still don't feel I'm the same person, and I do get angry at times.
And psychologically, what's the impact?
I just don't trust anybody anymore. It's really difficult.
You've described the local community, some of the local community, the local council especially, taking a different approach to you. What about more broadly amongst friends and...
No, no. They've kept away. They have kept away. I have a couple that I used to babysit for. They've backed me all the way. And he said to me, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what happens now, people have made up their minds.
We've heard that you had a young daughter. What was the impact on her?
She was bullied in school. And she self-harm as well.
And how about your husband?
He's healthy. No problems at all. Then he was diagnosed with cancer. We've had to go through that, all the treatments, and he's still on treatment.
Have you received compensation?
I've had the interim payments, yes, but we haven't touched it. We've had advice, and we've put it, saved it, because we're scared. Because it says on that piece of paper from the post office in little writing that if they decide I've only been awarded half of this, they'll want it back, and we're petrified because we've had to struggle financially, and we don't want to touch it at the moment.
A question that was asked of witnesses yesterday, what would you like from the post office?
This is a very difficult, in a way, question to answer. At first, yes, I want them to go to jail for what they've done. But then that would be an easy life for them. They'd come out and they'd still have their money. I want them to feel the way I felt and the way we suffered financially.
Is there anything you'd like to add at all?
I just want somebody to be accountable because it's just gone on for so long and people are hiding. Somebody's got to be accountable for this.
Chair, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Blake. I think you covered everything that was in Mrs. Williams' statement that I'd like to hear about. Mrs. Williams, thank you very much for taking the trouble to come to give evidence. It's a long way from Anglesey to London, as I know from personal experience. But I'm very grateful to you for the evidence you've given. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We'll take a 15-minute break now, so we'll come back at a 11:15.
Yes, certainly. Fine. That's fine by me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Annie?
I do solemnly,
I do solemnly,
sincerely and truly
sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
should be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you give us your full name, please?
It's Damien Peter Owen.
You have in front of you a witness statement. It's dated the 13th of January of this year.
Yep.
If I could ask you to have a look at the final page of that witness statement. Is that your signature on the final page?
It is.
And can you confirm that that statement is true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah, to the best of my recollection and belief, yeah, it is.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with your background. Can you tell us where you were born?
I was born in Wrexham in 1983. Shortly afterwards, my parents moved to Anglesey, where their families lived anyway, where they originate from, and just lived in a small village there in Menabridge for the first 30 odd years of my life.
And what did your family do for a living?
My dad managed a shop, and then for a couple of years my mum went to work with him, and then she took over a post office, which is how I ended up in the post office in the end. And they kind of went on from there.
So when Mr. Beer opened and he mentioned that some witnesses have a close connection with the post office, yours goes back to your childhood, is that right?
Yeah, certainly my teenage years onwards, yeah.
Where did you start work?
I started helping, post office wise, or
In general, what was the first job that you had?
I was probably about 10 or so. I started working delivering papers for my dad's shop. I'd deliver papers, I'd clean the windows. You know, by the time I was 14, 15, I'd had enough tucked away for a car when I was 18. So, you know, that all helped out. You know, I was earning more money at that kind of age than I could spend, which was nice. But I didn't really have any grasp of the value of money then. So it was just like, meh, stick in a pile.
And what did you do after that?
After that, I played a lot of rugby. I kind of, as soon as I turned 18, I went to work in an off licence, worked in some pubs while I was still studying as well.
And I think in 2010 you got married.
Yeah, sounds right.
And then at some stage you took up the role of branch manager, is that right?
Yeah.
Where was that and when was that?
That was Glenalder Post Office. It was one of the 4 or 5 branches in Bangor, North Wales at the time.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We've heard a lot about sub-postmasters, sub-postmistresses. What does a branch manager do?
Exactly the same, but for a fraction less money, and you haven't got you're not directly contracted to the post office.
I'm going to ask you about an audit that took place in an investigation. You were audited in 2010.
Yeah.
And the auditor found a shortfall of nearly £25,000.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What was your reaction to hearing that news?
It wasn't good. Not words that I would use here, apparently. But I was annoyed because 2 weeks before that, we'd had the new system put in. Someone had been out, checked everything, and I would say I was there pretty much a couple of pennies to a pound either side. So I knew it was all there because I spent hours with this fella counting everything, all the stock, all the cash, absolutely everything, and it was all there, all ticked off, and you know it all balanced brilliantly.
You said that the new system had been recently put in. What system was that?
It was the updated Horizon Plus or whatever they called it at the time, Horizon Online.
Horizon Online.
So they come in to put that in. So they counted me the night before, switched on the new system. He came back for the remaining for the next morning. So I met him at 8 o'clock. The branch didn't normally open until 9 o'clock. It used to be 8:30 before I started working there, and I wasn't really for that. But then he met me there, done another count of everything with the new system being now online. Everything again matched up, and fine, left it at that. Up until the audit, it was within 2 weeks. Someone came round, a security fella, and he said, "Well, we're just here to do an audit." I thought, okay, well, you know, I've got a lot to do, so we'll just crack on, and then you know I'll get open and get sorted. But we never did open again after that. I never did open again after that.
And can you tell us about the conversation you had about that money with the auditor?
With the order, I said, well, it's a branch that we never held that amount of money there. It's a small branch, one of the quieter branches, and it's mainly there because there was a lot of old people's homes, not old people's, but like people's flats on that road, and it was right opposite some of them. So we'd just come in, get the pension. There wasn't a need for any massive cash holding there. As far as I'm aware, the most money that I had in the branch ever was about 13,000. So for him to tell me that I'm like 25 grand down, I was like, nah, mate, come on, check it again. So my parents' accountant had read something about this in Computer Weekly, as you mentioned earlier, and he said he was more than willing to go and do a forensic accountant.
So let's talk about that and the actual investigation by the police. I think you were interviewed at a police station in 2011.
Yeah.
How was that?
It wasn't one of my better days, but they woke me up early in the morning. At the time, I ran a community centre, So I was working in the post office, I ran a community centre, did a bit of pub work as well. At the time I had a pregnant girlfriend/wife. So I'd work day and night, it didn't really bother me, but I was thinking I wanted to be prepared as possible. So my job in the community centre afforded me a flat. So that kept costs down, so anything I was earning then, I could just tuck away. So early in the morning, I think it was about 6:30, 7ish, there's like a bang on the door. Like banging, banging, banging. So I'm like, must be important. So I go down to the door, there's the police and there's one of the two security people from the post office. The name escapes me, but, it's not really important. But they came into my house. They did a quite thorough search, actually. There was an attic, and I said to them, look, do you want to go up there? That's the only place they didn't search, was the attic.
And did you stay at your house, or did you move on with them?
I was there until they'd finished conducting a search, but they kind of kept me in there up until they'd finished doing what I didn't find out at the time. They were also searching at the same time my mother's house next door, which had a post office underneath, because she'd had similar issues not 6 months before when she changed over to the new system. So, yes, they took me and my mother in at the same time.
And that was to a police station?
To a police station in Carnarvon.
And you've mentioned the Computer Weekly article that you were aware at that time of some issues with Horizon. Was that something you mentioned to the investigators?
I didn't mention it myself, because by the time I'd been kind of picked up on it and taken to the police station, I hadn't discussed it in that depth with the accountant, but my dad had. So,
And what did the accountant offer to do?
he'd offered to go in and do a proper, thorough, not only computer search, but everything search, so that we could ascertain, what's showing the anomalies on the system, but we flat out refused that.
Moving on to the prosecution, can you tell us about your first court appearance?
Okay, first court appearance,
Where was it?
that would have been in the Magistrates' Court in Carnarvon. There was 2 or 3 times where I went there. My dad went with me also, so he's got cover in his shop, and he's come with me for the day. And we've got there and we've waited all day for our case to come be drawn, and no one from the post office had turned up at all. And there was 2 or 3 cases like that, and my sister had a pop at trying to get it thrown out there and then, because if they're not going to bother turning up, how can I possibly, why should I be here? So no, that was refused there, and I think it was the third or fourth time that they did turn up, and then it was escalated to the Crown Court.
And which Crown Court was that?
That was also Carnarvon.
And you had a trial in the...
I had a trial, which was in Mould, which is somewhat 40-50 minutes down the dual carriageway from there, on a good run.
So you had entered a not guilty plea.
I had.
And they had fixed the trial. When it came to the trial, were people aware that you were being prosecuted in your local community?
Up until the second day of my trial, no. But on the second day of my 3-day trial, I was staying at my parents' house at the time. I come downstairs through the shop, Daily Post, national newspaper of Wales. I'm on the front of it, a very unflattering picture, with Bangor postmaster steals 25 grand or whatever it was at the time, because the figure kept changing each time I went to court. So, just grab a figure and run with it, really. So yeah, so that day on, so I said to my brief at the time, well, are they allowed to be doing this and influencing the jury mid-trial? So it's a case of, I'm there to be judged by my peers, not based on the story that the post office have given to the Daily Post. So I thought that was a bit unfair.
How did you feel seeing that story where you were living?
Well, I felt a bit destroyed, actually. You know what I mean? Last time I was in the papers for good reasons. Before that, I'd be, playing rugby or whatever, or running or something. I used to be very physically active. And any time in the paper would have been a positive thing.
Yeah.
But not from then on.
You were ultimately convicted of theft. How did it feel to you on receiving that news?
To be fair, I was prepared for it, but I was prepared for it because my original barrister, from the first day I met him in the barrister's chambers in Chester, he said, "Look, there's no hope. Just plead guilty. We'll just get it over and done with quickly, and just take 4 or 5 years on the chin and just do that." So.
We've heard from previous witnesses about plea bargains, but that didn't take place in...
That didn't take place, no, but that solicitor then went to the post office barristers and said, if he pays the money back, what will happen? Well, one, I was in no financial position to pay any money back, and two, I was very against that in the first place, just on sheer principle. It's like, I've not had any benefit from that money. There's not a chance in hell that you're getting any money out of me at all. But they said to him, well, look, if he pays the money back, he can still do his 4 or 5 years. And then, so there was no kind of real offer for anything, really.
Can you tell us what sentence you did receive?
When I went for sentencing, for some reason it was in Chester, I received, I'm pretty sure it was 8 months custodial. I received that on my original trial was the start of December. It's something like the 4th, 5th and 6th, possibly. It's either that or that's when my wedding day was, but it's somewhere around that area. So I was sentenced on December the 23rd.
So you were sentenced just before Christmas, and presumably you spent Christmas in prison.
Yeah.
Which prison was that?
Alt Course in Liverpool. Is in Versackley.
And how was that experience?
I've been on better holidays.
Can you tell us a bit about your experience in prison?
It's just not a kind of place that I want to be. It's not somewhere that is. I don't know really. It's what you make of it, innit?
I appreciate it. It's difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
But how did it affect you?
I lost an awful lot of weight. As you can see now, I'm a nice trim gentleman. But at the time, I was probably about the weight I am now, actually, just 14, 15 stone. And I came out and I was in there 10 weeks, and in that 10 weeks I'd lost 4.5 stone. So it didn't sit well with me.
Could you sleep at night?
I slept off and on. I just tried to keep myself busy, really. I did a few courses. I don't know, just I did what I could to pass the time as quickly as I could.
And moving on to the impact on you generally.
Mr. Blake, before you do that, could I just clarify one aspect of Mr. Owen's evidence? You said, Mr. Owen, that when you got the banging on the door early in the morning, it was the police and post office investigators, and then you went to the police station.
Yes.
Yeah? Was it police officers or post office investigators who interviewed you under caution?
It was 2 of the post office security.
Right.
So following that, then when I went to answer bail at the police station, I was told by the police that any investigations had led to nothing, and as far as they could see, that money didn't exist in the first place. So I felt done, dusted, until I discovered that the post office has powers of prosecution themselves, which was an eye-opener.
Yeah. And when you were or before that interview under caution began, were you offered the opportunity to have legal representation?
I was.
And did you take up that offer, or did you remain on your own?
I remained on my own because I felt I was there and they were wasting my time, and yeah, I wasn't with the whole thing that, okay, they're going to try and manipulate me in any way. It was quite naive. At the time, I didn't struggle for confidence, so I just thought.
Right. And then just one last question. You told Mr. Blake already that you were not offered a plea bargain of any. That simply didn't arise, did it, throughout the whole court proceedings?
No. The only kind of back and forth we had between them was I wanted to know whether or not they'll be chasing the figure for me to pay back.
Yeah. So the only discussions between the lawyers and their lawyers related to whether or not there should be a repayment, not whether there should be a plea bargain.
Yeah. Which case they said that no, they weren't going to be seeking any what's it called? Malicious prosecution, proceeds of crime.
Yeah,
right.
Proceeds of crime.
So even though you were convicted of theft of quite a large sum of money, they didn't actually seek to recover the money from you. Is that correct?
That is correct. To me, which I thought that spoke volumes at the time. The fact that if someone stole from me, one way or another, I'd be getting it back from them. Whether or not I go down the court's route or take it into my own hands, I would seek that back, which made it quite clear that they knew something was wrong.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Owen. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Blake. Back to you.
Not at all. And it's right to say you weren't a sub-postmaster, so there wasn't a contract between you and the post office.
No, there wasn't, no.
On the impact generally, what was the impact on your mental health? I think you've received a diagnosis of some sort, is that right?
Yeah. I can't remember exactly what. I don't think I read his whole report, but it didn't reflect too well on my mental well-being. I'm not sure if you got the report there.
I don't have the report.
No.
We don't need to go into
No,
the
good.
report. You've
You've
sought help and you've received a formal diagnosis.
Yeah. And they'd sent me for more counselling following that, which over the whole COVID thing was all Zoom meetings, and there's only so many times someone can ask you over a Zoom call, well, how did that make you feel? Before you're like, do you know how it made me feel? Gone. That's how it made me feel. Just kind of sacked it all off.
Well, I'm sorry to add to that today. What about your job prospects?
Now or then?
Then and now.
Now, since they're looking up as of kind of last April, when I got my conviction overturned. But the last 10 years have all been the most menial of bottom of the rung jobs. Because who else is going to employ someone with a criminal record for theft or whatever it was?
And how about your relationships with other people? Did it affect your family relationships? Your brother, for example?
Yeah. Well, we haven't spoken since about this time. There's been some friction there, and it all just kind of brought it to a head. And there are times where I can be quite fiery, so you cross the line and that's it. I'll be off. And so he brought it to one of one of them stages, and yeah, we don't speak. And as far as us not speaking, for example, my daughter's turned 11 at the weekend, so she's 11, and she found out something last summer, wasn't it? She found out last summer that I had a brother, because we were staying at my mum and dad's house, and his kids were there, and she was like, "These kids are always here. Who are they?" I was like, "I don't know." But then she found out then that they're her cousins, and yeah, and I had a brother.
And how did it affect your daughter, finding out that you were going to prison?
She didn't.
No.
She doesn't know. The part of the story I've told her is that I worked for the post office. It didn't end well, and I've come here today. So she doesn't know about the whole story, and I think that's probably something I'm going to try and put off for a couple more years if I can.
And the local community?
Well, I don't live where I used to anymore. I live in Stafford now. Local community, I suppose on the whole, mostly to my face, were fine. But it's that little village kind of thing, you know. When I go back now, I get very positive. Well, you know what I mean, kind of. Oh well, you're right after all. Well, I know I'm right, but what gets said in small village life, I suppose, no one will know. It's kind of that thing, isn't it, where everyone talks about everyone anyway. So you've got a reason for them to talk about you. It's just going to perpetuate the situation.
And how do you feel now your conviction's been quashed?
I think it's good it's been quashed, but for me, since it has been quashed, I haven't really done an awful lot of anything because of medical things anyway, so I've literally been stuck at home anyway, so I haven't yet done anything that I couldn't have done prior to it being quashed.
What do you want from the post office?
I would possibly... pass me that. Just that end one. Just that end one. Oh, and the block, please. That. Photocopy, yeah. I would like a better apology for what they've done to me than this rubbish from Tim Parker. It is the most feeble apology I've ever received for anything in my life. Which I did seek him out, actually. It says at the end of this, if you have any questions about this letter or there are any other matters we're able to assist you with, please feel free to contact me, of which there are no contact details on this. So being quite single-minded, I sought him out, and I've contacted him personally with a copy of this to elaborate on that, what that further meant for him, which is nothing at all. They will not do anything to kind of help in any way. They don't want to assist in any way. He's now left, hasn't he, last week? Tim Parker? Yeah. I would like a proper apology. I'll tell you what, I'm not going to beat it around the bush. I'm going to say I want a decent amount of money out of them. I spent 10 years doing menial jobs, which I'm an educated person, are massively beneath me. Sounds big-headed, but, well, it's true. It's true. I can't spend the rest of my life doing that, and I can't bring back them 10 years. And, yeah, I want some decent money, decent apology, and I want... I've made a list there. Oh yeah, I have said that I want there to be convictions, not only for the people who have perpetuated the I call it what it is, but the whole conspiracy inside the post office. You know, everyone from the top down that knew and was still pushing charges. I want charges against not only the people in my court case that came to give their evidence, who have, one, lied under oath. I want each of them to receive a perjury charge. I don't know. I do feel as well, I can see there's quite a few people from the media here today, but as well, I want it to be given a proper, thorough account of what has actually gone on. Nick Wallace has done an awful lot. He's been brilliant in his radios, his TV programmes and his book, which is a good read. But it almost seems like a lot of these media outlets here have been too afraid to put anything in there, anything out there. I'm wondering why that is. I'm wondering, has there been pressure from somewhere else? If not, why? You know, it's correct me if I'm wrong, is this not the largest miscarriage of justice in British legal history? And what, there's like a page every day or two, every week or two, every month. I think we deserve better. I think we do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Owen. Chair, do you have any further questions at all?
No, thank you. I asked the questions that I wanted to already. So it just remains, Mr. Owen, for me to thank you for taking the time and trouble to come to give evidence to me. You'll have heard me say yesterday, or no doubt will have been told, that I attach very considerable importance to all of this evidence. So a special thanks to you and everyone else who's coming to give this evidence to me.
Well, thank you much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair. We're going to be back at 1:30. We're going to take an early lunch, and we're going to come back at 1:30 to hear from Lisa Brennan. So this afternoon's witnesses have been brought forward by half an hour.
Yeah, I understand that, and I'm very glad that you're able to operate so flexibly, Mr. Blake. And I think the one witness this afternoon is giving live evidence in the building with you, and the second one will be remote like me, so to speak.
That's correct.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll reassemble at 1:30, and thanks very much to everyone.
Thank you.